This time on Dave's Game Room, we're going to be taking a look at some more good and bad Formula 1 games. And we're going to start off with an absolute classic. This game is brilliant. I remember spending so many hours of my teenage years, if you like, playing this game. It's fantastic. It's a refinement of the original Formula 1 game that you saw on part 1, with some tweaks to the physics, the way the crashes are, the way the damage is to some degree, and just in general with the handling. And it's based on the 1997 Formula 1 season. So as you can see, I'm just going through the menus. There's also a separate arcade mode that's completely different, of course. It handles completely differently and plays and feels totally differently as well. So, I'm going to let the legend that is Mr. Murray Walker talk you through this awesome footage of the Australian Grand Prix.
Welcome to Albert Park here in Melbourne for the Australian Grand Prix. The circuit itself is set in the middle of this beautiful park, surrounded by trees and encircling the central lake. The drivers are getting ready for the start. They're lined up on the grid. When the last red light goes out, the race starts. It's go now for Australia 97. Straight down towards turn 1 they come. He just collided with Diniz.
You've got quite a lot of damage there. Do you want to come in?
Superb! He's off to a flying start. He really is having to brake very heavily there. It's Michael Schumacher. That was definitely a knock on the barrier. The brake discs will really be glowing after that section. Truly's taken him.
We're ready for you if you want to get that damage fixed.
There are yellow warning flags out round this section. This is lap 2 of the race.
Now, I may have performed badly in that F1 97 footage that you just saw, but if you want to see something really bad, here it is. This is F1 live information on the Japanese Sega Saturn. It was released in Europe, I believe, as a game called F1 Challenge. You can see from this FMV sequence, it looks kind of promising and kind of cool. It's based on the 1995 Formula 1 season, and there you can see the title screen, F1 Live Information, which got me sort of curious as to what a Sega Saturn Formula 1 racing game would be like. So here's the choice of cars. You've got Michael Schumacher's Benetton, and you've got Katayama, Hill, Hakkinen, Alesi, and Schumacher again. So that's the choice of cars you get. You don't get a choice of the full grid, and the game is very, very arcadey. But yet, this game to me is a bad Formula 1 game, and I'm going to try and talk about why as we get into it. So you can see there the tracks that are available, only a few available. So I've cut these loading sequences down. You can see here's the garage. Again, you think this looks pretty cool. It looks good for a Sega Saturn game, which I thought it did as well, initially. But then you get into it, and okay, so graphically, yeah, it's not as good as the Formula 1 game on the PlayStation that was of the same season, so 1995, and released ran about the same sort of time as this game. So yeah, graphically it's not great, but graphics don't mean everything, as we know. It's the gameplay that matters. And I've got to say, the handling of the cars in this game is absolutely terrible, as is the physics, as is the crashing. I mean, the crashes are like a non-event. The only thing that I do like, or one of the only things that I do like about this particular game, is look at the caption, the top sort of right underneath the position there, where it's showing you like an alternative TV camera, helicopter camera style view of the race. That I really, really like and think is awesome. It's great when you're coming up to corners, and it's awesome when you're coming up to other cars to overtake, as you can see here. That's really cool. And the other thing that isn't in the European version of this game is you get commentary. But as I don't speak or understand Japanese, I haven't got a clue what they're saying. You might hear the odd Hakkinen or Schumacher or something like that in a Japanese accent. But that's about it, and that's about all that I can sort of understand and hear them say. So yeah, I mean, it's a shame this one, because as I said, I picked it up because I was curious as to what a Sega Saturn Formula 1 game was going to be like. And I didn't even know this existed because I didn't actually see F1 Challenge back in the day when I saw the Sega Saturn. This one is a real shame. You can see I'm going off the track, hitting the wall. It's just a missed opportunity, this one was, I think. But I suppose if arcadey Formula 1 races, very arcadey Formula 1 races are your thing, then this one might be worth looking at if you've got a Sega Saturn lying around.
今宮さん、今年のウィリアムズなんですが、昨年と変わった点っていうのはどういうところでしょう。
はい、FW17 シャシーですけれども、注目する点としてはベネトンと同じハイノーズ方式を採用したことですね。そしてエンジンは昨年と同じルノー V10、確実に改良の進んだマシンで今年レースに臨んでいます。ウィリアムズ・ルノーコンビは今年も健在といったところです。パッケージングの良さがこのレースでうまく発揮されますか。
Thankfully on Dave's Game Room though, we take the bad with the good. So, up next is another good Formula 1 racing game. Nigel Mansell's World Championship. Now you may have heard me referencing this in the part 1 of the good and bad F1 games. This is the Super Nintendo version, which for me, by far and away, is the more superior version of the game. It was also released on the Amiga. I've actually got the A1200 AGA version of the game, and it's not bad, but it suffers a bit with the frame rate, which is a bit annoying, I suppose. This version of the game though is brilliant. The Mega Drive version of this game is terrible. The Game Boy version of this game was pretty cool. I had that as a youngster. I loved it and played it a lot. A friend of mine who lived down the road from me had a Super Nintendo, and he had this game, and I just loved going around his house and playing this game. Again, as I said during part 1, this is of a similar kind of mould as Super Monaco Grand Prix, but I think this is better than Super Monaco Grand Prix. You've got kind of the track layout for the real tracks. I think all the real 16 World Championship tracks that were in the 1992 Formula 1 season are in this game. I don't think the full grid is though, I think only half the grid is. But I prefer this game. I think this game's awesome. It's better than Super Monaco GP, which is a good racing game, a good arcade racing game from Sega. And it's also better than that F1 game that you saw me play again during the Good and Bad Formula 1 games Part 1, where every time I hit a car I sort of bounced up in the air. This game is cool. This is the Silverstone circuit, the old layout as well. It is funny, of course, that the trackside objects and everything else, they're obviously not right. You don't see, or you never saw, a bunch of big red arrows and what looks like those things from Super Mario Bros. 2 on the side of the track. But, you know, putting all that aside, and these dodgy bales of hay as well, putting that aside, this game is awesome. It's fast, it's frantic, but it's so much fun. And again, this is one I would recommend. If you've got a Super Nintendo lying around, you fancy a bit of Formula 1, a bit of racing, this is the one to go for, definitely. Give this a try, guys. It's awesome. There's also a Mansell's Advice bit of this game as well, which I think is pretty cool, in which you'll hear Nigel Mansell say good or bad or fast or slow and various other things as you're taking corners and as you're obviously going around the track. That's kind of cool as well. I mean, it's a small thing, but it's a cool thing to have. It's made also, this game, by a company that doesn't exist anymore and hasn't existed since, I think, the late 90s, and that's Gremlin, who I really liked Gremlin. I thought they were awesome as a studio, so it is a big shame that they closed down, because this is awesome, and I may do a Good and Bad football games in the future as well. Might get Mike in on that one, because Mike has got the same sort of experiences as I've had with football games on consoles, because the Actua Sport series which had Actua Soccer, Actua Golf and Actua Ice Hockey, was made by Gremlin, as was the Premier Manager series, if any of you guys were, players of Premier Manager, in particular Premier Manager 3, which I loved. But yeah, Nigel Mansell's World Championship, guys, good game on the Super Nintendo, worth a go. I was chuffed that I picked this up. So, we go from good to bad. Formula 1 2001 on the Sony PlayStation 2, you guys might be thinking, how can this be bad? It's on the PS2, which the PS2 was really, really cool. How can F1 97 be great on the PlayStation, but this be bad and appearing on this video?
Michael Schumacher makes an uncharacteristic mistake.
Now, I'm not going to shut up and let Murray Walker speak on this one, because unfortunately, the commentary on this game I think is pretty bad. This is the last one that Murray did before he retired from commentating on Formula 1 races, and then we had the drab, dreary, horrendously tones of, James Allen, who was awful as a commentator, and I really, really hate ITV for the fact that they introduced him to us. But yeah, Formula 1 2001, it looks pretty good actually, to be fair, in terms of graphically, but there's a problem. Did they not test how this game was going to play? Just look at the way the steering is snapping from left to right and how ridiculous it is. It is just awful, guys. It is so bad. And it ruins this game. It breaks this game for me completely. Even the physics, like crashing into other cars, and the damage, even that to me has taken a step backwards since Formula 1 97, which I thought was amazing on the PlayStation. You're going to see, hopefully, because I think I show you the replay, how ridiculous this looks on the replay. With the car twitching around, it just looks pathetic. And don't even get me started. Me and a good friend of mine, Rob, actually came round to play some retro games with me not so long ago, actually. And we fired this up for a laugh to play some two-player racing. Only to find it was only me and Rob, which is rubbish. Why has it not got some of the other AI cars? And we just both could not get on with the handling, and we hated it. Even though back in the day I think Rob did quite like this game. But hopefully I'm going to show you the replay mode in a second, because it's just ridiculous. Yeah, I do. Here it is. Look how much the car twitches. Look at it. It's just ridiculous. It's twitching around all over the place. They obviously didn't test this or didn't dial this game in for use with analog sticks, because it's awful, guys. Avoid this one like the plague. This is for collectors only. Just leave this one well alone. Thankfully though, we're right on track with the last game of the series, Grand Prix 4. Now, for anybody that's ever played a Microprose Grand Prix game that's made by Jeff Crammond, from Grand Prix Circuit on the Amiga and PC-DOS, all the way up to Grand Prix 4, which sadly was the last one of the series from Jeff Crammond, will know how awesome his Formula 1 games were. GP2 is a popular one that people still play every now and again on the DOS platform. Grand Prix 3 was very popular, as was the Season 2000 add-on. This game, though, was amazing. I loved it to bits. In fact, I'd still play this today, as you can see a replay of me causing a bit of carnage. I just love the crash physics and the damage. I think it's amazing. My only problem with this particular game is that even when you turn steering assistance off, if you're using the keyboard, which please don't laugh for me saying keyboard, yes, I use the keyboard to play this game, then yeah, it still feels like there's some steering assistance going on as you take the corners. It doesn't feel like you're actually controlling the car taking the corners, which is a big shame. It really is. But otherwise, it's awesome. And yeah, I did actually break out the steering wheel to play this game. Not on this video footage, but I did afterwards. And it feels pretty good with my 911 Turbo S wheel. And the feeling of the assistance feels a bit less as well. And yeah, I'm turning the assistance off in case anybody's wondering. So here I am, steaming down to the first corner. Another problem with this game and other Formula 1 games is the fact that the AI seems to be easy to pick off from the start at the first corner of most tracks. You can just sail down the inside, brake late, and you'll have a couple of them for tea as I go off wide here. But yeah, guys, this game is awesome. If you've got a PC, it doesn't even have to be a particularly good PC from the last sort of, 10 years or so. Track down GP4, honestly, because it's a cool game. If you're into your Formula 1 races, you're going to like this. This is awesome. And there are still all kinds of people out there making mods for this game in the modding community. So you could have cars from 2014 on it. You can even get some of the test vehicles from 2015 if you really wanted to, and different tracks as well. And that's one thing I really, really like about the modding community and what they can do with games. It doesn't all have to be about people cheating and doing silly things on GTA Online or Call of Duty Online and ruining the gameplay. It can also be awesome stuff like with this Formula 1 game. If I had more time, I'd actually show you some of the mods and you can see how cool the game can actually be. But yeah, Grand Prix 4 guys, and Grand Prix 3 is worth looking at. Grand Prix 2 is getting on a bit. It can be played using the DOSBox emulator if, like me, you've only got access to a relatively new PC. And here I'm just going to end this by doing something stupid and just crashing. Why not? And this should be the replay. Again, I love the replays. They are amazing on this game. I think they're fantastic. So guys, thanks as ever for watching. Me and Mike will be back soon with another Dave and Mike Reviews.
Watch out for debris.